So it was my senior year in high school, 1999. I took a trip to Southwest Texas State University to meet with the admissions officer. So I walked in the office. "Hello, Mr. Ferguson, great to see you. Let's see your grades." And showed him my grades, and he says, "Well, Mr. Ferguson, these are abysmal. There's no way you're going to get into the university here. Maybe you should do something else with your life, but I don't think that you're going to be able to get into school anywhere." And so I went home, and I thought to myself, I'm going to make a change in my life. And, most of my life I've been playing sports, I've been playing football, and so my grades were really bad, and so that news really didn't surprise me. And so that next morning I went into the football coach's office, and I said, "Coach, I don't want to play football anymore." And so I quit the team. And after that, I decided that I was going to take a break from things in life, and didn't really do a whole lot with my life for a while, and my parents started to notice. And they said, "Brad, got a lot of extra time on your hands. Maybe you should get a job." And so I did. I got a job at a local roller skating rink as a disc jockey. And so one day, prior to the skating session, a manager came up to me and said, "Brad, today there's going to be about 60 kids coming in from a daycare. And one of those kids is autistic. And so you need to keep an eye on him." And I thought to myself, what the heck does he mean? This kid's artistic? What's he going to do? Is he going to draw over the walls or something? And so the doors to the skating rink opened, and those 60 kids all filed in, and all of them ran over to the skate counter to get their skates, all of them except for one. And this child ran right past me. He ran right past the manager of the skating rink, all the way down the side, until he reached the fire exit. And he hit the door. And this is like a 1970s buzzer that went off, so it's really, really loud. Everybody in the skating rink looked over at us. And the child heard the buzzer, and he just sat on the floor. And he put his hands over his ears, and he screamed. And so I was right behind him. I had skates on, so I got there pretty quick. And I closed the door, got him back inside, and said, "Hey, this is the fire exit. You shouldn't go out there unless there's a fire or some other type of emergency." And he never said a word to me, never looked at me. And so I took him back over to the skate counter where all the other kids were and got his skates on. And it was clearly apparent to me he didn't know how to skate. He still hasn't said a word to me, still hasn't looked at me. So I took him out there to the middle of the skating floor, and there's the disco ball, turning around, and then the mirror images are all over the floor, and I can see him, he's looking at them, not looking at me, not saying a word. And so I grabbed his hands, and I'm teaching him how to skate. And we probably did this for about an hour. And all of a sudden, toward the end of the session, I remember, I had his hands in mine, and he looked up at me, just for maybe a second, I think. And I remember feeling this extreme happiness. It was really just a feeling that I couldn't quite describe, but I know that I was definitely happy. And I wanted to take his hands and go, "Oh, this is great, hey, thanks, you looked at me like, ooh, let's be friends," but I figured he probably wouldn't like that. And so all the kids with the daycare left the skating rink, and I went back into the DJ booth, and it dawned on me. My manager didn't say he was artistic, he was autistic. And I knew absolutely nothing about autism. And so I wanted to prove that guy at the admissions office wrong. And so I got into university and started to study psychology. And while I was there, I worked at a psychiatric hospital, and I worked with a lot of kids, with autistic individuals there. And I started to learn that there are some autistic individuals that are verbal, and that they will look at you, and that some of them have excellent poetry skills, and they're able to recite poetry flawlessly, and that they're able to draw things from memory, and it's perfect. And so that wasn't enough, and I thought, you know, this is really something interesting. Maybe this is what I want to do with my life. And so I moved away from home and I went to another university and I studied clinical psychology. And I specialized in autism, applied behavior analysis, and neuropsychology. And while I was there studying, I worked at a place called Project HELP. It stands for Helping Educate Little People. It was a center where there's people with autism, people without autism. And while I was there at the center, my job was to help make this little boy, Johnny, to help him make eye contact. And so we're out there on the playground and all the other kids are playing and Johnny's over here by himself and he's wearing his little sandals and his Power Rangers t-shirt. It's as cute as can be. And I'd go over to him and say, hey Johnny, look at me. You know, Johnny, look at me. And if he didn't look, I'd take his head and point it toward mine and say, oh good, you know, thanks for looking at me. But he never really looked at me. It was like our eyes were, you know, two of the same poles of a magnet, you know, they wouldn't align. And so I think it was probably the 101st trial of doing this. I was getting kind of tired of doing this. The 101st time I said, Johnny, look at me. And he looked right up at me with those big brown chocolate eyes, and I cried. I couldn't help it. I cried. And again, I felt that same very happy feeling just here in my midsection, and thought to myself, you know, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to work with autistic individuals. And so I went on and moved again, and I got a PhD in neuroscience and working with autistic individuals. And just the other day, had another experience. And so I work at the Thompson Center for Autism, University of Missouri. So I see a lot of kids. I see a lot of people with autism, and I work in a laboratory. And when you go into the laboratory, many of you maybe know this. You know, there's screens everywhere. There's bright lights. There's wires. There's computers. There's loud noises. We're doing things like blood draws, and this is a very stressful experience for these people. And so I had a little boy come in, sat down in a chair in the laboratory, and he looked down and he started to cry, and he said, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this. And he screamed, and so I tried every trick in the book, you know, trying to get him to calm down. I could not get him to calm down. And I was just about to give up, and we were going to cancel the appointment. And that's when he looks at me and he says, you know what, Brad? I don't want to do this, but I want to help other people like me. and it hit me right here, as it is right now. I shed a tear. We went on with the research appointment. And at the end of the appointment, you know, we said our goodbyes, and I still don't think he was very happy to be there, but he went through with the appointment. And so I went back to my desk and did some paperwork, and he left, went out in the parking lot, and I needed to go across the street to the clinic building, so I had to go out in the parking lot. And so I saw our participant. He was getting into his car, and he had one leg up into the car, and I think he saw me. He looked over at me out of the corner of his eye. He saw me, and he stepped back out of the car, and he ran over toward me and just gave me this big bear hug. And that was it. He never made eye contact with me. He never said a word. And then he went back to the car, got in it, drove away. And again, I shed a tear or two. And it really, just that experience has just, it made me feel like this is exactly where I need to be in life. And that I can only hope to make a difference with my research in people with autism. Thank you.